So at this point, how far have you read?
I actually just been keeping along with you guys now.
Oh, okay, so we're all caught up.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, so we left off, and I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we'll see who joins us. But I kind of like this, so if you want to keep it as a conversation, we totally can.
Okay.
Um, we left off at Montag getting to the firehouse when he had Faber's listening piece in his ear,
Hmm.
and so he was thinking about how he was going to approach Beatty. And Beatty stood near the drop hole waiting, but with his back turned as if he were not waiting. Well, he said to the men playing cards, here comes a very strange beast, which in all tongues is called a fool. So now he's already greeting Montag by calling him a fool. He put his hand to one side, palm up, for a gift. Montag put the book in it. Without even glancing at the title, Beatty tossed the book in the trash basket and lit a cigarette. Who are a little wise, the best fools be. What do you think that phrase means?
Mm, maybe because they believe like they're smart enough than other people, they don't listen to other people's opinions.
Yeah, that's kind of like
They're
it.
better than anybody else.
Exactly. Have you ever heard a phrase, a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing?
Yeah.
A lot of people who know a little bit feel like they know a whole lot more, and so they're inclined to take more risks or be full of themselves or not consider the alternatives. Welcome back, Montag. I hope you'll be staying with us now that your fever is done and your sickness over. Sit in for a hand of poker? They sat, and the cards were dealt. In Beatty's sight, Montag felt the guilt of his hands. His fingers were like ferrets that had done some evil and now never rested, always stirred and picked and hid in pockets, moving from under Beatty's alcohol-flamed stare. If Beatty so much as breathed on them, Montag felt that his hands might wither, turn over on their sides, and never be shocked to life again. They would be buried the rest of his life in his coat sleeves, forgotten. For these were the hands that had acted on their own, no part of him. And remember, the image of his hands acting alone, it's almost like they're a separate character.
Mhm.
If Beatty so much as breathed on them, Montag felt that his hands might wither, turn over on their sides, and never be shocked to life again. They would be buried the rest of his life in his coat sleeves, forgotten. For these were the hands that had acted on their own, no part of him. Here was where the conscience first manifested itself to snatch books, dart off with Job and Ruth and Willie Shakespeare, and now in the firehouse, these hands seemed gloved with blood. Twice in half an hour, Montag had to rise from the game and go to the latrine to wash his hands. When he came back, he hid his hands under the table. Beatty laughed. Let's have your hands in sight, Montag. Not that we don't trust you, understand, but. Now, there's a character. He mentions William Shakespeare here. Have you ever read Macbeth by any chance?
Yeah, I did last year.
Okay. You did. Great.
Yeah.
So, do you remember what Lady Macbeth is doing after the murder?
Um. No, I don't. I actually don't remember.
Okay. She keeps washing her hands and she keeps saying, out, out, damn spot. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, it wasn't like this. The sea couldn't even wash away the blood.
Yeah. And really, it wasn't about the blood that was actually on her hands, it was about
Hmm.
the guilt.
Yeah,
So,
the amount of guilt she had.
exactly. So, it even became a phrase that we use now to say when someone's guilty that they've got blood on their hands. And so, here's Montag feeling the same way. Well, said Beatty, the crisis is past and all is well. The sheep returns to the fold. We're all sheep who've strayed at times. Truth is truth to the end of reckoning, we've cried. They are never alone that are accompanied with noble thoughts, we've shouted to ourselves. Sweet food of sweetly uttered knowledge, Sir Philip Sidney said. But, on the other hand, words are like leaves, and where they most abound, much fruit of sense beneath is rarely found. Alexander Pope. What do you think of that, Montag? I don't know. Careful, whispered Favor, living in another world far away. Or this, a little learning is a dangerous thing. We talked about that a minute ago. Drink deep or taste not the Pierian spring. There shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again. Pope, same essay. Where does that put you? Montag bit his lip. I'll tell you, said Beatty, smiling at his cards. That made you, for a little while, a drunkard. Read a few lines and off you go over the cliff. Bang, you're ready to blow up the world, chop off heads, knock down women and children, destroy authority. I know, I've been through it all. I'm all right, said Montag nervously. Stop blushing. I'm not needling, really I'm not. Do you know I had a dream an hour ago? I lay down for a cat nap, and in this dream, you and I, Montag, got into a furious debate about books. You towered with rage, yelled quotes at me. I calmly parried every thrust. Power, I said. And you, quoting Dr. Johnson, said, knowledge is more than equivalent to force. And I said, well, Dr. Johnson also said, dear boy, that he is no wise man that will quit a certainty for an uncertainty. Stick with the fireman, Montag. All else is dreary chaos. Don't listen, whispered Faber. He's trying to confuse. He's slippery. Watch out. Beatty chuckled. And you said, quoting, truth will come to light. Murder will not be hid long. And I cried in good humor, oh God, he speaks only of his horse, and the devil can cite scripture for his purpose. And you yelled, this age thinks better of a gilded fool than of a threadbare saint in wisdom's school. And I whispered gently, the dignity of truth is lost with much protesting. And you screamed, carcasses bleed at the sight of the murderer. And I said, patting your hand, what, do I give you trench mouth? And you shrieked, knowledge is power. And a dwarf on a giant's shoulders sees the furthest of the two. And I summed up my side with rare serenity in the folly of mistaking a metaphor for a proof, a torrent of verbiage for a spring of capital truths, and oneself as an oracle is inborn in us, Mr. Valeri once said. What's Beatty doing here?
He's like trying to tell him what's already gonna happen. Like he has a feeling what Montag is gonna do. Maybe he's like kind of seeing the future of their conversation.
Yeah, kind of. And why in his dream do you think they're both quoting all of these authors?
I don't know, maybe to see like who's gonna budge first, maybe.
Yeah. And it's also because when you think about it, some people quote wise authors because they express something in a way that really sums it up and makes it clear. Other people quote, and that's what I want you to be able to do when you get to the AP exam. Some people quote authors because they just want to be impressive. And it's almost like an ego thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in Beatty's dream, Beatty and Montag are like throwing these quotes at each other, almost like weapons, but they're not really attached personally to the wisdom of their argument. They're just trying to get the better of each other and one up each other. Doesn't it feel that way to you?
Yeah.
Montag's head whirled sickeningly. And by the way, before I go on, did you have any questions about any of those quotes? Did all that make sense?
Yeah, they did.
Okay. Montag's head whirled sickeningly. He felt beaten unmercifully on brow, eyes, nose, lips, chin, on shoulders, on upflailing arms. He wanted to yell, no, shut up, you're confusing things, stop it. Beatty's graceful fingers thrust out to seize his wrist. God, what a pulse. I've got you going, have I, Montag? Jesus, God, your pulse sounds like the day after the war. Everything but sirens and bells. Shall I talk some more? I like your look of panic. Swahili, Indian, English lit. I speak them all. A kind of excellent dumb discourse, Willie. Now, he says English lit like it's a language. Hi, Bernadita, how are you?
Hi.
So we were just reading this scene where Montag and Beatty are having this conversation and Faber is in Montag's ear. But why do you think he says English lit is its own language?
Maybe he's trying to make himself seem more smart in a way.
Could be, yeah. When you think about it, some of the language that we use in English lit, for example, if we talk about tone in that way or direct or indirect characterization, you don't really talk mostly like that when you're just reading with friends or when you're reading on your own. In fact, it would almost ruin the book for you to stop and pause and say, is that an example of synecdoche or something technical that the author's trying to do as a technique? So when he says that, I think you're right. He's trying to act a little bit smarter. Oh, you were scared silly, said Beatty, for I was doing a terrible thing. in using the very books you clung to rebut you on every hand, on every point. What traitors books can be. You think they're backing you up, and they turn on you. Others can use them too, and there you are, lost in the middle of the moor, in a great welter of nouns and verbs and adjectives. And at the very end of my dream, along I came with the salamander and said, going my way? And you got in, and we drove back to the firehouse in beatific silence, all dwindled away to peace. Beatty let Montag's wrist go, let the hands slump limply on the table. All's well that is well in the end. Silence. Montag sat like a carved white stone. The echo of the final hammer on his skull died slowly away into the black cavern where Faber waited for the echoes to subside. And then, when the startled dust had settled down about Montag's mind, Faber began softly. All right, he's had his say. You must take it in. I'll say my say too in the next few hours, and you'll take it in. And you'll try to judge them and make your own decision as to which way to jump or fall. But I want it to be your decision, not mine, and not the captain's. But remember that the captain belongs to the most dangerous enemy to truth and freedom, the solid, unmoving cattle of the majority. Oh God, the terrible tyranny of the majority. We all have our harps to play, and it's up to you now to know with which ear you'll listen. Montag opened his mouth to answer Faber, and was saved this error in the presence of others when the station bell rang. The alarm voice in the ceiling chanted. There was a tacking sound as the alarm report telephone typed out the address across the room. Captain Beatty, his poker cards in one pink hand, walked with exaggerated slowness to the phone and ripped out the address when the report was finished. He glanced perfunctorily at it. That means he barely gave it a glance, and shoved it in his pocket. He came back and sat down. The others looked at him. It can wait exactly 40 seconds while I take all the money away from you, said Beatty happily. Montag put his cards down. Tired, Montag? Going out of the game? Yes. Hold on. Well, come to think of it, we can finish this hand later. Just leave your cards face down and hustle the equipment. On the double now. And Beatty rose up again. Montag, you don't look well. I'd hate to think you were coming down with another fever. I'll be all right. You'll be fine. This is a special case. Come on, jump for it. They leaped into the air and clutched the grass pole as if it were the last vantage point above a tidal wave passing below. And then the brass pole, to their dismay, slid them down into darkness, into the blast and cough and suction of the gaseous dragon roaring to life. Hey! They rounded a corner in thunder and siren, with concussion of tires, with scream of rubber, with a shift of kerosene bulk in the glittery brass tank, like the food in the stomach of a giant, with Montag's fingers jolting off the silver rail, swinging into cold space, with the wind tearing his hair back from his head, with the wind whistling in his teeth, and him all the while thinking of the women, the chaff women in his parlor tonight, with the kernels blown out from under them by a neon wind, and his damn silly reading of a book to them. You remember last week when Montag read the poem?
Yes.
To Mildred's friends. How like trying to put out fires with water pistols. How senseless and insane. One rage turned in for another, one anger displacing another. When would he stop being entirely mad and be quiet, be very quiet indeed? Here we go. Montag looked up. Beatty never drove, but he was driving tonight, slamming the salamander around corners, leaning forward high on the driver's throne, his massive black slicker flapping out behind so that he seemed a great black bat flying above the engine, over the brass numbers, taking the full wind. Here we go to keep the world happy, Montag. Beatty's pink phosphorescent cheeks glimmered in the high darkness, and he was smiling furiously. Here we are. The salamander boomed to a halt, throwing men off in slips and clumsy hops. Montag stood fixing his raw eyes to the cold, bright rail under his clenched fingers. I can't do it, he thought. How can I go with this new assignment? How can I go on burning things? I can't go in this place. Beatty, smelling of the wind through which he had rushed, was at Montag's elbow. All right, Montag. The men ran like cripples in their clumsy boots, as quietly as spiders. At last, Montag raised his eyes and turned. Beatty was watching his face. Something the matter, Montag? Why, said Montag slowly, we've stopped in front of my house. Now I'm going to pause there because we're at the end of the section. As you can see, this is the beginning of the third part and the final part of the book. And believe it or not, we only have about 40 more pages to go in the entire book. So what do you think about the fact that now they're at Montag's house? Do you think that Beatty knew that the whole time when Montag was playing cards? What do you think is going to happen next?
I'm not sure. For some reason, I feel like Montag and Beatty are gonna have like a huge argument. Maybe Montag's house gonna end up burning down because Beatty finds out of all the books and everything.
Yeah, I think you're on the right track with that one. Bernadita, do you have any thoughts or questions about this?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to keep today to that. And I'm just nodding at the book off screen that you can't see. And I'm going to put up the post. And remember that we're here just by agreement this week because obviously it's spring break. And I'm going to keep going because this was by everyone's request. And whoever can make it is great. And if it's just us, then wonderful and lucky for us. Does anything come up for you in your thinking before we sign off for the day? Is there anything in general, whether it's AP or grades or school or stuff?
No.
Okay. How are you guys doing with life at home still?
It sucks.
Yeah.
With all little siblings and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Emma, did you see that poll for the story time? Is that something that's going to be interesting for your family?
I have to ask them because my sister likes reading, but it's kind of hard to get my little brothers to read.
Okay.
I try.
Well, and that's I'm going to do that a little bit differently than this. Obviously, I'm going to be holding the Dr. Seuss book that I'm going to start with, like right up to the screen, and I'm going to be narrating it, and I'll probably do a voice or two. And I used to have little kids myself, so that's kind of a different kind of fun.
Yeah, that actually might help. I might be able to help like my uncle with his girls and like take them over here for the story time for a little bit.
Sure, that'd be great. And I'll take a look because a few more people responded with times. It's looking like probably Thursday at 3, but I'll put it up on the course blog and we'll figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah, I would drag him to the screen for just a minute or two, and if I can't make it entertaining after that, well then
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, are you both getting some exercise and eating some good food and keeping yourselves like strong and healthy and all that?
Yeah. I've been trying to keep a little routine, even though like some days like it goes out the window.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Same thing around here. Well, if you ever need anything, send me an email or pop up on the course blog. And otherwise, I will be here tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day.
You too, Mr. Preston.
Bye.